this evening. We'll go ahead and get started. So looks like we got a full crew tonight. Dan, Alex, myself, Dave, and Blunty.
Oh,
Welcome everybody.
Alex, when did you sneak in? I
What
was
do you
busy
mean?
About
looking at my other
five
screen.
seconds ago.
I've been in here since 9 o'clock.
That's funny. All right, let's see. Let me go back here. I'm gonna make sure I grab the right thing. All right, so being that this is going to be in my hometown this year, not more than 10 miles from my house,
So you're
we
going to
will
be
be
doing a
hosting.
lot of flying this weekend? Is that what you're saying? From your backyard?
No, not at all.
Well, it would be better than watching the game.
Wow. Wow. So, yeah, so Super Bowl is obviously this weekend, here in Glendale, um, just outside of Phoenix. So, there's some very starting tomorrow, TFR is going to effect, covering downtown Phoenix for the NFL experience, as well as the day of the game, obviously around State Farm Stadium. So folks in my local communities, don't be that guy. Take note of the TFRs and make sure that if you're flying, you have permission to, and just don't risk it. There's a lot of focus on uh, an event like this. So, yeah. So it starts. Actually, I have the NOTAM here pulled up. So it starts uh, February 9th, and it goes from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock in the morning daily, all the way through the 12th. And that this is just covering downtown Phoenix. And then if I go back to the list, there's another one here specifically for the stadium during the game. In case anybody was wondering what a TFR looks like, if you haven't gotten in, this is generally what they look like. They give you all the information, the dates, the times, the GPS coordinates, and all the specific instructions down below. You can click on these sectionals here, and you can doesn't give you a ton of information. It's more a picture, but each one of these little red circles is for something different. And it will generally give you information if you go onto the TFR map and you zoom in into the map here. So this little circle, for instance, this covers February 17th. This is an air show out in Buckeye, Arizona, which isn't very far from me either. And then you can see Glendale on the 12th here, covering the stadium. So you can kind of get some information here, as well as any of the TFRs that are up and coming, starting from 2/6, or sorry, some of the ones that are in the past, to look at past TFRs. So, as well as anything coming up. So,
Or
yeah, don't be that guy. Don't
if you
fly.
want to see it in a little easier to digest format, fire up something like a loft.
Mm-hmm.
I forget if they show those ahead of time. Sometimes they might, but definitely during the active TFR, it shows on the
Yeah.
loft on the map where you're at, and you can touch it, and it'll tell you why you can't fly there and everything.
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to show folks what a TFR actually looks like, so that if you ever do need to go in here, and now you got a little bit of background to kind of sort that out. So
Yeah, the user interface there definitely goes back in
a
time.
little old. Yeah, this could definitely use some updating, but it's the FAA, so you know,
Well,
at a snail's pace, right?
wasn't there? Oh, that's the NOTAM system, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
same sort of thing. But yeah, that didn't they just recently say that there's a plan to update that, but it's going to take till 2030? I thought, gosh, I should have found that article. I thought I saw something about that.
And they didn't mean
Yeah.
8:30 at night. That was
Right.
Oh, sorry. That's
I should
I mean,
search, see if I
par
can
for the
find
course.
that.
Yeah, that'd be good information. But
yeah, but
yeah,
I bet they
it's
I bet they have their backup systems figured out.
Yeah, Bloomberg, well, lots of places talk about it. Yeah, the air traffic code won't be fixed until 2030.
No, jeez.
Yeah,
Nice.
if you search like FAA NOTAM update 2030, you'll find articles from yesterday about it.
So yeah, it's a pretty large area. Is it effectively 30 miles, Bits?
Well, that's a good
yeah, there you
question.
go.
There's a question in Discord. Isn't the Super Bowl in Arizona a covered stadium?
It is a covered stadium, but
Such a
the
good
roof
point.
does open. The roof does open.
So all I have to do is open the roof crack, and the FAA has authority. Very good.
100%.
Very good question.
Well, I would guess even if there was a completely closed roof stadium, there would still be a TFR about flying above it.
Oh yeah, above
Sure,
it,
State
absolutely.
Farm Stadium opens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the one to say, yeah, let's try to get someone inside.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, let's see.
So
It's
if it is
been pretty
closed, then you
fresh.
can fly it indoors.
That's what I was. That's what I
Yeah,
took the.
yeah, that is a
Right, that's clever.
Yep, so the roof does retract onto the sides here. So this should be an interesting thing. So stay safe, everybody. Stay legal. That's all I have. So this has kind of been making the waves lately. The toroidal, am I saying it? Toroidal?
riddle.
Propellers. A noise-killing game changer in air and water. So didn't you all start with "Don't be that guy," and now we're thinking of ways to be that guy? There you go. 100% don't be that guy. Don't go around that. 29.99 miles away. All right.
Oh no, no.
That's awesome. So these have been making the waves ever since this article came out that about toroidal propellers. I've seen a lot of 3D printed propellers. I've seen people creating these and getting some interesting results with them. So it says propellers are designed to take a fluid, generally air or water, and use rotating motion to push that fluid through. They're evolutions in a sense from the Archimedes screw, which was likely used in ancient Egypt for thousands of years before it was described by Archimedes in 234 BCE. So we're fascinated to find a couple of groups claiming they've demonstrated significant advantage in both air and water using markedly different shapes, specifically strange twisted toroid ring shapes that appear not to be only which appear not only to be much quieter than traditional designs, but so much more efficient, particularly in the marine space, that they could mark a profound leap. One key issue with multi-copter props is their annoying noise, which is often described to as whiny, because much of it sits right in the same frequency range as a baby's cries. Never put those two together.
So the next time you go fly and someone complains about it, say, "It's just a baby's crying in the sky."
Grandfather Dave.
My grandson is not noisy.
Does he sound like a quadcopter?
No, he's just a happy little
Gotta
guy.
hover right next to him.
He's incredibly happy.
That's awesome. Humans tend to be most sensitive to sounds between 100 hertz and 5 kilohertz. This makes evolutionary sense. It's where we hear vowel sounds that are key to verbal communication. But it's a key issue if multicopters are going to fulfill their potential and fill our skies with fast, cheap, clean aerial delivery services.
So Alex, do you have a view on this? I mean, with water, it's a non-compressible fluid, and air, it's a compressible fluid, and people are talking about similar shapes, and it's like I'm struggling that this even a remotely similar shape would be effective in a non-compressible to a compressible fluid.
I just think that it's going to have its use cases more specifically, and it's not going to be as broad of a use case.
Mm-hmm.
But I also haven't taken the fluids class yet, so I can't speak on that half.
Yeah, I think from a mass moment of inertia perspective, these things are not going to spin up as quickly. So that will be acceleration will be attenuated a little bit.
I'll be curious when some company actually makes some decent models. I know a lot of people 3D printed their own and tested them, but yeah, HQ Props or somebody come out with a real version of it and see how that compares.
Yeah.
People were saying because of the shape of them, it'll be difficult to
Mold.
actually be able to get them to be injection molded. It's probably going to have to be just SL8 or something like the MIT props were. And then I don't know if it'll be mass producible in the same way for the same cost as another prop.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about from a perspective. We talk about, why don't they just injection mold? I mean, even with today's 3D printing, making an injection mold is a non-trivial effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd be interested to see in terms of efficiency, what they produce. I mean, so two things. I mean, drone delivery, great if you've got that going, but at the same time, things like Cinewhoops and long flying platforms in terms of things that need to stay in the air consistently, how it affects. But they've got some graphs here mapping out the noise reduction from basically utilizing DJI standard props and wingtips versus the toroidal. But in terms of length of flights and power used, I think that would be an interesting thing too. Especially like Cinewhoops Cinewhoops and that kind of thing where you're operating close and around people. This could definitely be an interesting, choice.
And in the Beyond Visual Line of Sight arc, they brought in we had a whole section for the first half of the BV loss, or first third of the effort and one of the sections was on environmental concerns. And the number one concern for manned or crewed aircraft is noise. And so they brought in the NEPA person, and she was great. She was very helpful. And so we started doing some research on what's state of the art in terms of quieter drone props. And there is a fair amount of academic work going on. So it's so I think Josh is on target. And I agree with Alex that there are use cases where this is going to be really, really important.
Well, I could
And
totally see something like a Cinelifter filming something where the audio could be
Around
annoying,
people.
or you're flying a drone chasing some sporting event doing a live feed, and there's people around that don't want to hear the drone noise as much. So minimizing that might be worth a performance decrease if that's the case.
Absolutely. Right.
I'm also curious of what the impact, like the lacerations, are like from that shape, because instead of a full blade, it's instead of like it goes to a point on a blade, it's a little rounded, and some of them you could modify so it's just a ring around it, so it mainly just be a frictional.
Yeah,
so you could almost have a built-in.
It just punches you out. Yeah, that's a good point, Alex. I like the thought.
Yeah, like those little toy discs where you spin them and they just launch up.
Or we used to
have
launch
the ring
little
around them and
plastic little saucer shooters.
Yeah.
Back when back when I was
good comment from Bits Bites. Instead of cutting, it seems like these props would be more of push things or stuff out of the way. Good point.
Yeah, I like the thought of an inbuilt kind of prop protector. That's a thought for sure. Unless it shatters on contact.
We got some good comedians in the chat. Yeah, I had one of those. I had a prop do that 2 weeks ago. I was like, "What happened?"
Oh, I've had HQ, like the old school HQ, the OG, the glass fiber ones. Oh man, those, like, you breathe on them funny, and they.
I was glad I was my requisite setback distance.
I still have a bunch of those OG
per my safety our safety guidelines.
Right. All right. So the next and last article for today is going to be from SUAS News. So let's see. I saw this. I glanced at it. So AirMoto is a new instant drone insurance app that allows unmanned aircraft system operators to purchase either hourly or annual policies to suit their growing business or hobby. The app, both available on iOS and Android platform, provides options to buy insurance for a single drone, a fleet, or add multiple pilots, and purchase the add-on. Purchase on-the-spot insurance with policy document is generated and sent via email once operators have made their payment. AirMoto is partnered with the drone industry's most recognized provider of professional training and safety services, the Unmanned Safety Institute. All policies purchased on AirMoto's app accumulate safety points, which can be used with USI. Looks like this is going to be recreational, at least options for recreational. This is something obviously we'll have to dig into to see if this is another option for drone insurance out there. So it says the fun and excitement associated with recreational drone use or the enormous value proposition derived from commercial UAS operations can disappear in an instant in the event of an incident or accident. Even with today's UAS becoming more capable and sophisticated, risk management remains the responsibility of every operator. We worked with AirMoto to provide an incredibly wide selection of safety-related products and services that can elevate an individual's pilot's knowledge and skills to enhance organizational commitment to safe and effective and efficient operations. So this would be something to look into. It's difficult to find insurance companies that will insure recreational pilots.
Right.
It's something we looked into when we first started the FPVFC. We found one after talking with several different companies.
Yeah, and Meat mentions that, good. I like his skepticism. I can only imagine how abusive that policy probably is. On the spot insurance for aircraft sounds downright sketchy. Or it would be a very narrow range of coverage. And the company that Josh is referring to that we found has been around now for 6-7 years. Skywatch.ai, I think, is their website, and people like it. And it is billable by the hour, or up to full around the clock, whatever you want. And it's reputable, and it was a company that figured out that they could calculate the actuarial probabilities better than other folks, and this was a niche that they could jump into, and they did. So now Skywatch appears to have a competitor. We'll see.
Yep.
It would be interesting to know, is there another larger insurance company underneath AirMoto?
100%. Nothing more ruthless than an insurance agent with an actuarial table.
Yeah, if only they knew what an actuarial table is about.
So yeah, definitely something interesting. So anyway, that's all I have for the news tonight. Dave, what do we got going on with?
There was an article on the Senate 307, I believe. There's a bill that was proposed today. Sent you an email on it, Josh.
I missed it.
That's okay. And so this one is quite interesting, and it had its moments of levity. AUVSI is the private, not sponsors the wrong word, but they are an advocate of this bill, and it appears that the bill, at first glance, is that they're trying to get Congress to pass a bill that will mandate to the FAA that the FAA within 6 months publish a notice for public rulemaking on airworthiness of aircraft performing beyond visual line of sight, and these are specifically small UAS, so above 0.55, below 55 pounds. So this is curious, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see if it goes anywhere. The fact that it came up on the floor in the Senate is significant, and AUVSI is has a significant amount of push. They're well funded. There's the bill, So we'll see if this goes anywhere. This was forwarded to me today, and it's the sort of thing that we're interested in. This is a good segue to. We had a conversation with two congressional staffers, and if anyone has been involved in how legislation is made at the federal level in the United States, lobbyists and staffers are the people who write the bills, and so chances of finding intelligent staffers or intelligent lobbyists are pretty high. So we lucked out two delightful young people we got a chance to talk to. And we, as FTCA and FPVFC, so Flight Test Community Association, and us. And we've got some follow-ups. And as we mentioned, I think 2 weeks ago, our objective is we will continue to refine input to the 2023 FAA Reauthorization Act, and we will put that up on our website and encourage folks to use the utility that Josh was working on this past weekend, which allows you to identify if your congressional representative or senator is on one of the two aviation subcommittees, and then click through and send some comments. And so, unlike a notice for public rulemaking, copy and paste works with Congress because it shows, people are interested, and it's a check mark, and they keep a tally. And so that could be very helpful. And so we'll likely do that. And we have to refine. We're all scurrying to do some research and figure out some a small number of requests that could be that have the most benefit to us in a 2023 FAA Reauthorization Act. The other key element, and we've been trying to figure this out, is what is the schedule that this act is on? And so, of course, schedules in Congress are an anathema, so it's highly probable that it will change. But the fact that we're talking to the people who are writing the bill, and the calendar they are on is they want the bill out of the House by July of this year.
So it's not too late.
So it's not too late. So we've got some time to do this. And so that, and as we've mentioned in the past, the 2023 FAA Reauthorization Act is both bicameral and bipartisan. Very unusual for these for the FAA Reauthorization Act. So there will be a Senate version of the act, and then so the House, if they make their schedule end of July, then they will meet up with. There will be a conference of senators and congressional representatives that will meet, that will adjudicate or rationalize and come up with a single piece of legislation that will then have to be voted on by both chambers again. So, like we said in the past, isn't it great? You come to these meetings, you get a civics lesson. So this is important to us.
I see Josh has brought up our website where we've got the House committees and Senate committees. And down at the bottom, we used to have something you could copy and paste for some previous suggestions we had, but we're still working on what we would like people to be able to use to send in, and hopefully we'll fill that in on the bottom of that page really soon.
Yep, 100%. And guys, the each one of these are subcommittees that are responsible for different things, but a lot of these kind of cross over into having authorization or having responsibility over the FAA in some form or function, right? So the transportation and infrastructure, the House Subcommittee on Aviation, you've got appropriations. These are the people with the purse strings that fund these regulatory industries or organizations.
Agencies.
Sorry.
These are agencies. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. So both for the House and the Senate committee. So all these have been updated to current, which they've been quickly selecting people to serve on these subcommittees, with the exception of the one on science, space, and technology. For the House, as of last weekend, they had not updated, or they had not selected committee members that I could find. So that will be updated soon. So the ones that are in here are a little old. So, and here's the thing, guys. A lot of these positions, unless these guys are gone, they don't change a whole lot.
Right. Yeah, because they like the chair is an Air Force pilot, in a former life.
Right.
So hopefully they get people who are knowledgeable. And as I say, the staffers who we talked to this week, as well as staffers in the past, these are really sharp people. And so it's if we're all a little dubious of one political individual or another, but it's young staff that are getting things done.
And here's the thing to think about, and this is something we discuss kind of internally as well, is something like the Reauthorization Act, despite political leanings, the fact is that I would say that depending on what's going on politically, the Congress the Congress and the House, or sorry, the House and the Senate would be more likely to shut down the government than they would be likely to shut down the FAA. Because as we saw recently, what happened with the shutdown of flights due to a coding errors, that caused a massive amount of chaos. So just think about that for a second.
Right.
So,
and we do recall that in 2018, on the Senate side, the votes were 100-0 for the FAA reauthorization. And of course, it is much larger, as Josh is saying, than just UAS. It's all traffic control, anything having to do with the FAA. It's the entire agency. So Meets has a comment. He did a quick scan of the Senate bill, and he said it looks pretty sane. And my remark on the comic aspect of it is that I agree that it looked sane, and the comic, with the exception of that they were stipulating that the FAA produce an NPRM with a notice for public rulemaking within 6 months. And so we know that the remote ID notice for public rulemaking took 3.5, 4 years. Part 107 was a 10-year process. So 6 months, that's what. However, that said, if you're following what's going on with Amazon Prime Air from the UAS organization, 80% of their organization has been laid off. So that's really unfortunate. And the Amazon spokespeople are pointing to one of the major reasons that they have had such difficulty getting off the ground, if you'll forgive the pun, was because of the FAA's difficulty in authorizing type certification BB-loss aircraft. So this bill goes directly at that issue.
Yep, 100%. All right, what else we got, Dave? We had I wasn't a part of it, but you guys had a meeting that you guys attended with the FAA on FRIAs, right?
Safe to say we had a disappointing meeting with the FAA on FRIAs.
Yeah, we will likely Friday morning do a joint FTCA FPVFC video. That'll be Dan and me, I think, on the FPVFC side. And we were so the meeting with the we asked for a meeting because we asserted that the FRIA application system was not functioning, and we suggested that the FAA get a number of the CBOs together, and so it was positive. It took 6 weeks for us to schedule the meeting. That's not good. But it is good that we had absolutely the right people on the phone call from the FAA side, and we had all 4 community-based organizations: STEM-C+, AMA, Flight Test Community Association, and us.
Oh, that we should just throw out there that there is a 4th CBO now. I don't think that existed from our previous meeting.
Good point.
Yeah, STEM plus C.
STEM plus C or STEM. I think that's. I keep thinking STEM C+, and I'm thinking C++, but it's the other way around. So. Yes, dating myself. I know, Alex. It's not Python.
They don't teach us
Torch.
Python in class yet.
No.
They still teach us C.
Oh my gosh! Really? Oh my word!
Wow. C and Java.
Wow, how interesting. So, we had a list of questions that we wanted the FAA to answer, and we approached this situation with upbeat and a productive mindset, and we were not impressed. A couple of the things that they told us were that they anticipate the total number of FRIAs in the United States to be approximately 4,000. Let that sink in. So if you calculate the number of UAS in the United States as per the FAA is 1.51 million right now. If you figure a club gets together, let's say 20 people. We'll be conservative. That's, to me, that's a large number. But divide 1.51 million by 20, how many FRIAs would you need? I think the answer is around 79,000. So the FAA is contemplating 4,000. So they're a little off. Just by wet thumb in the air calculations, the AMA has 2,600 fixed sites. So the AMA will want all 2,600 of theirs approved. The FAA also has no service level agreement in terms of a turnaround time when an application for a FRIA is submitted. How long will it take for them to respond? They're not saying. They estimate that each approval will require 4 months. 4,000, 4 months. I think we're into the next millennia. So this isn't, and it's our calculation and estimation based on the conversations that we had with the FAA that they have not yet started processing the applications. So 4,000 total. This comes into play September 2023. Don't think we're going to make it. So in addition, they said that the objective of the remote ID rule was to optimize the number of UAS transmitting remote ID broadcast. So
what about safety and security?
That was the question I asked. I said I thought that the objective of that rule was safety and security, and of course it should have just been safety, but it's safety and security. But told by one of the people who was active in writing the rule, the objective is to maximize the number of UAS broadcasting RID. So we will articulate the points that we're putting together appropriate messaging points. I don't want to do this all off the cuff. And we will get this out on a video. Welcome any questions right now on this. Our objective is to be one, very transparent with what's going on, and two, we also recognize that as one of the people who worked for me in Texas used to tell me, Dave, don't shoot the dealer. So this is the only game in town. So we have to work with the FAA in order to get FRIAs approved. So we have to maintain and be professional about this, and we will. It is, that said, it is very frustrating. 107.
So we've got a couple questions. So does that mean they're capping it or only expecting 4,000?
Great question. It's our judgment that they are estimating. And so usually in something like that, when they drop a number like that, that has everything to do with how many people they're putting on manning the or staffing out the application process. Great question.
I'm sure somewhere along the line somebody was like, "Oh, there's 2,500 or so AMA sites. We'll toss in an extra 1,000, 1,500 just for good measure, and that's what we'll expect, right?"
Yep.
Right.
That's what I'm betting.
With no further thought put to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you run a couple of numbers, and it just does not make sense.
Yeah, and we're imagining lots more FRIAs than that. And even Paul from
100%.
STEM Plus C was thinking like his goal someday is like every STEM program at every school across the country should have a FRIA for their soccer and football fields so that they can go fly without remote ID on their little drones. And that's way more than 4,000 just for the schools alone.
Right.
Well, and even think about other organizations that do STEM, right? I mean, there's church organizations, there's what do you call them?
Educational institutions.
Well, obviously, I mean, educational institutions can apply for their own, right? But there's other organizations that don't fit into the mold that the FAA has prescribed, right? So, or you've got kind of the what do you call them? The centers where you can go and 3D print and solder
Maker
and stuff like
spaces.
that. There you go, maker spaces. Thank you. Gosh, um, that would benefit from stuff like this. Even just if you think about people who want to do outreach and utilize drones as a method to do that in terms of maybe lower income areas or troubled youth or stuff like that. There's a ton of organizations that don't fit into that mold that would benefit from spaces like this.
Yeah, they would, but the FAA wants every drone out there to have remote ID. So why would they want more FRIAs?
Right.
Well,
right. And
yeah,
that was one of the statements is that, we don't want to populate the United States with FRIAs. We're trying to, make it that the remote ID is, ubiquitous. Mead has a good point. 107 pilots are in a bit more of a jam, but I bet a lot of them are going to be having remote
RID in
ID
name.
in name only. If I understand, or if I could take that statement, and one of the things that I've been hearing quite a bit is we bet that folks who are flying 107 are going to put a broadcast module on and call it a day for the time being. And so if you're flying 107, you really have to have an aircraft that is standard remote ID, full stop. And that's as of, September last year. So let's say that your aircraft is manufactured after September 16, 2022. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to try to get it retrofitted to be standard remote ID? So you put a broadcast module, and you've made a best effort to comply. I think that that's going to be a reasonable response to remote ID for Part 107. We're not necessarily advocating it, but I bet that that's that is not within the letter of the rule. But I bet that's a good common sense path for people, because it demonstrates, I'm flying 107. This is my business. I'm trying to make money here. I'm trying to comply. And you're trying to be the right do the right thing. And by putting a module on, to me, I'm broadcasting. The only thing I'm not doing is you don't get a dynamic update of where I am, and I don't have a system that shuts off the propulsion system if I have a failure on takeoff only of the remote ID system. Those are the two significant differences.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, so PB, he says Arizona Science Center is pretty focused on STEM, 100%, and may or may not fit within the education, but it's not really a school, right? It's more of a museum type thing. So I wish they would do more stuff with FPV, but they've got larger indoor spaces too that they could do, like whoops and stuff. CM Reaper says, so at the rate that they may approve FRIAs, it seems like it will actually kill legal whoop events. So
Let's hope not.
I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, because a lot of whoop racing is inside where the FAA has no jurisdiction, right? So
Also, most whoops will be under 250 as well.
250 grams.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, it wouldn't
if
even
you're
qualify.
proposing that it's a Part 107, it's not a just for fun thing, then
Yeah.
Right.
then
Right.
you need remote
Hey, Alex,
ID.
Great. So on the to segue to some very positive and good news, do you have any background, or can you address the multi-GP announcement that they added spec? How was it? Street League, Tiny Whoop,
Street League, and Freedom Spec.
And Freedom Spec.
Yep.
So
we've partnered with all three of them, and they are official specs now of multi-GP. So chapters can go in, and when they're hosting a race, they can say, "Oh, we're hosting a Tiny Whoop race," or "We're hosting a Freedom Spec race," and you're able to now filter races by their class or their spec. So you can search for open class races, you can search for Freedom Spec races, you can search for Street League. And so, yeah, that's all part of the MultiGP 2.0 website that we just released. So, yeah,
I think it's great. I mean, to me, when I think of the analog to car racing of spec racing, and it allows people to, I arrive with something that's a little, everyone else has it, pretty much the same aircraft, it's the same vehicle, and you're really basing the race on skill. So to me, I love the idea, and hopefully it helps keep the cost down, and that's a positive. And it's good for manufacturers as well, because they have, they're like, we're going to glom onto this size and this class of FPV drones. I love it. So I think I was thrilled to see that, and also stoked for all three leagues. I think that's it shows great leadership on each of the three organizations that they've gotten together with MultiGP. And props to MultiGP for doing this.
Yep. All right, so let's see. They're pushing people. Meat says they're pushing people into a corner. That's, I mean, it's an interesting thought. Let's see. They don't understand the scale or how we fly. Is racing considered commercial? It is, and again, Blunty said, I believe it's only if you get prizes. So generally, any type of compensation, and in sports, this is kind of the way it rolls down. If you get compensation, you're considered a professional. Professional leads to commercial, right? So it's just a further extension of that. Getting a prize is fun. Racing for a prize is fun. Thus racing should be recreational, right? If recreational is defined as flying for fun, right, Dan? I agree. I 100% agree.
I would you could extend that to getting paid to fly too. That's fun. It's fun getting paid to fly. So therefore, Part 107 shouldn't be a thing. It's all recreational.
Right. And I mean, here's the thing: is going back to MultiGP. I mean, again, another organization that would benefit massively from FRIAs, right? Not having to put extra gear on your racer. Always striving to have the lightest, most efficient, fastest, aircraft. Oh, Alex went away. But how many different chapters across the country are there for MultiGP? It's a lot of times it's more than one per state or two per state. Oftentimes it's many per state. So yeah, it's definitely I think they're way off base with this, and I think they're going to be a little overwhelmed when they realize how many different FRIAs are going to be applied for in 4 months. I mean,
yeah, and we've also we did discuss, was one of the questions we had, and we've been banging on this point for years with the FAA. We need something that supports MultiGP. We need you to be able to stand up an event, and Alex, we used your nominal time scale of 2 weeks. We'll give you 2 weeks notice to a location, but don't tell me 90 days. That we need to have 90 days to because in all of the FRIA application work, none of it supports a temporary location for an FPV race, and so that we have the FAA assures us that they are working on an exception for this.
So Mr. Stevac says, is there a proposed or applied for FRIA map? That's a good question.
They said that there will be a database, and so I think it's going to be an approved FRIA listing.
Yeah, we don't know anything about where the applications are at or what locations have been applied for. All we will know is what has been approved.
Right.
We can't see
That's
what
pretty
others have
common
applied.
practice.
Typical of
Yeah,
the FAA.
Yeah. No transparency.
Like
Right.
we can't even
Opaque.
see. We can't see what each of us have applied
Right.
for. So I can't see what Dan has applied for FRIAs, and Dan can't see what I have, even though we're all applying under FPVFC.
Right.
Which we mentioned to
Right.
the FAA that was an issue with their website, and yeah, maybe they took notes, maybe they didn't.
Yeah. So we have follow-ups with the FAA to work on these points, but
well, another thing
yeah,
we could mention is that they ignored us, but we did talk about, Dave, how I don't know exactly where this idea came from, but you've mentioned having one remote ID broadcast module, say, covering an event. So everybody at that event doesn't have to have remote ID modules on their drones. If you've got one module broadcasting, say, hey, there's a drone in this area, that should be good enough for remote ID.
absolutely. When you think about the tiny, tiny volumetric space that a race fills up, that's to me a brilliant idea. Bring along one remote ID broadcast module. We could even offer to use the existing notify and fly capability. So this weekend we'll be at this location flying, and we'll be flying maybe 50 feet above the ground. So yeah, I think there are some very good and common sense suggestions. We're not getting traction with the FAA just yet, but we will persevere.
100%. So
I was wondering total for FPVFC. We don't have a total just yet.
For how many we've currently, we don't know how many. I guess we haven't talked to each other to calculate how many we've done.
How many have we totally submitted at this point? And it's also
I've done about 5.
And I've done 1.
Okay.
And so the system is broken.
Yeah.
And so we know that there are several hundred that have been input. Many of them are garbage because they are not submitted from a CBO. And that's one of the hard requirements of an approval is a FRIA application must be submitted by a CBO. And we asked the FAA, would you please purge all applications so that you're not wasting your time reviewing applications that came from you don't know where?
And so here's the thing with the website. Yeah, well, here's the thing with the website is anyone can go in and apply for a FRIA and just say that they have authorization from FPVFC, FTCA, AMA, and not have any relationship to that organization. So
even XJet could go to the FAA's website, create an account, and pick a spot in the United States and say, I want a FRIA there. They would have no clue.
And so that's what Dave is effectively calling garbage ones, because they're not coming from our organization specifically. They're coming from people who are claiming our organization. So, and this is happening with everybody's organization. So there needs to be if this is the route that the FAA is going to take for this approval process, then there needs to be some controls in place, essentially. So.
So what was interesting to me is we all remember back in October we were complaining to the early October we were complaining to the FAA that where's the CBO process, where's the FRIA process, and they said, oh, well we're waiting until all of the IT effort is complete. We want to make sure that the application process is locked down. So it's locked down, all right. So we apologize for sharing the sausage process. In the interest of transparency, we wanted to be open about what's happening. This is not what, and so if you log in, if you're an AMA member and you log into what's going on there, this is a different message that you'll get. And so I can't, we can't speak for the AMA, but we can tell you that we were the ones that requested the meeting with the FAA. We got it set up, And this is the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah, I think people really want to hear and follow along with us on these behind the scenes things and see how things are going. I think we can also sort of quickly share that the FAA did say that FRIAs are not intended for short-term events or individual use.
Right.
We don't agree with that,
Right.
but that's what we were told.
Right.
Well, here's the thing, right? So ultimately, if and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. I am a person who wants to, I have a sizable yard, I've got, let's say 2 acres, and I want to make my 2 acres of my home a FRIA. They're saying I can't because it's for a private individual. However, if 3 people in my family fly FPV with me, now we become a group, right? So, and that group is wanting to get together on my property to fly in a FRIA. What's the difference? There is none. It's the number of people. Okay, so what is the mean number of people that the FAA is looking for to utilize a FRIA? I mean, it's absolute insanity, and it's something that
So
they're just
yeah,
not
and
thinking.
so the questions that we're seeing in the chat are excellent, and there's an important part of the FRIA application that is please state the purpose for need, and a wonderful FAA generated phrase, whatever that means. So what is the purpose for need? And there are no examples. There is no explanation of what that means. And so we're on our own to, and this is, I guess, like early days in any waiver process. Is this
Right.
Is this what you meant? Is this what you meant? Is this what you meant? So we'll play whack-a-mole until we figure out what the purpose of need is. They did tell us that they would like FRIAs to, as Dan said, to be for more than one individual and to be for a group. And so it's like, oh, an assembly. Great. You mean you're not going to tell us how many, but it's a group. So as Josh said, they're not looking favorably to our backyards.
Yeah.
And so, there was also a comment up here about submitting bots and things like that. We have thought about that. Our thought process, instead of just inundating the system with bots and applications, our thought process may be to inundate the system with legit applications. We may do that, and we may do that in conjunction with the FTCA. So please stand by on that request. And so to us, the smart thing to do is we probably have a checklist coming soon. I'm looking to see if he looks up. Checklist coming soon.
Alex?
Alex?
Yeah.
That's you, brother.
What?
Do we have?
He's doing homework at the same time. Give him a break.
No, I'm not doing homework this time. My internet is cutting in and out, so it's dropping.
Good excuse. I love that.
Nice. You sound great to
that's
us.
That's usually me. I'm sorry. I'm wondering if you are still working on a checklist for FRIAs.
Yes.
Excellent. So we will have a checklist that, and our good friends at FTCA already have an app that allows you to collect the information that we know is requested. So we know what the questions are, but we think it's a bit of a waste of time to submit applications into a black hole that we know is not turned on yet. The downside is that the FAA has said, well, their current thinking is to take all applications on a first come, first serve, which I protested immediately, and I would like this on a rota of one, that they should go around the 4 CBOs and select from each, because and certainly the AMA has been stuffing in applications for a month, and to me, it's how is this happening? But
yeah,
that's where we are.
Round robin would make much more sense. So Meat has a question here. What exactly are FRIAs intended for?
Throwing us a bone.
Old aircraft. That's
throwing
what
us a
FAA
bone.
thinks.
That's probably the most accurate thing, right? So
fixed wing RC, old, large, I think classic AMA clubs. I think that's I think that was
the
their
thought process.
concept behind it. And because if you remember in the initial rule, a FRIA was going to time out. They're going to do away with them 4 years. I forget. And they could there was a 1 year window where you could apply for a FRIA. Obviously, they've got that one figured out. They'll created a choke point to limit that number. But there was a finite amount of time that you could apply, and it could not be renewed. So that was in the initial blush or in the NPRM. In the final rule, of course, there's a renewal period, and of course there is no finite window of application.
So,
other questions about FRIAs?
I think the FAA is making this thing go.
I think my favorite, honestly, my favorite was Mr. Seabax. He says, "And these people control our airspace. Oh Lord." I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
Yes. 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 So,
is there any requirement they actually approve any? I'm not sure how to answer that.
I don't think that's good. I don't think that's guaranteed anywhere, right?
That's a good question, because one of the things that we've been pushing for an SLA on the turnaround to approval, and explicitly the FAA came back and said there is no timeline. However, we think it could take as long as 4 months to turn around each application. So that's a very good question. Is there a guarantee or requirement that they approve even one? And I think the answer is no. Wow, good question.
Wow.
DFW has a good question, which goes towards, I don't know if we can talk about how much you want to talk about LEAP, but basically DFW says, is there any expectation they'll actually enforce any violations?
Yes, there is. Yeah. And we feel that the FAA has been putting the appropriate pieces in place to ramp up enforcement. They needed a remote ID rule to know where we are. They needed CBOs to be able to articulate the safety guidelines, and they needed to have the mandated test. So we have trust, CBOs, safety guidelines, remote ID, we're ready. And this is one of the reasons we are delighted to have Rob come on FPVFC, because we know and we see that there's a significant headcount from the FAA staffing out LEAP, the Law Enforcement Assistance Program. So this tells us that, there is they are gearing up enforcement, and our objective is to move out through the various FPV communities, and let's get to know public safety people, so that there's a face under the goggles, and that we can help. And one of the things that's real interesting with FPV and both police and fire is the Avada has created another step function jump in the utilization of drones across public safety municipality offices.
Yeah, it sounds like they love them. They're very helpful.
Yes. So that to us this is a wonderful entree for us to be help, and to an opportunity to get to know public safety, and because there are far more of us than there are of FAA staff.
Yes.
Yeah, and the more local public safety officers have experience or have seen or know someone in their department that's using something like an Avada, the more they'll have a better idea of what we are doing. Hopefully that's a good thing. I imagine it would be.
Yeah, however you want to say it, control the narrative or educate the, the people or whatever, you want to get ahead of it. So, that was part of our point here is, we want to let them know, like, these aren't dangerous, and here's why, and here's how they can be useful, and here's what they do, and here's the safety record, and all those kind of things, right? Here's what's actually required, before we get the other side of it where, hey, these are bad, and here's the restrictions, and here's why you should stop them, and that sort of thing, right?
Big
I
water
knew we'd get a
UAV
Chinese
solution.
balloon coming in
That's
there.
the second one. Just call your quad a Chinese balloon. You can fly anywhere.
Until you get over the ocean, then they'll shoot you
Yeah,
down.
Well, isn't
don't
that
go
what
over the
DJI
ocean.
products are?
Class, flying in Class A, right, Alex? Oh my word!
Oh, that was epic. Good
Oh
job.
dear.
Good job. But yes,
Excellent.
education is how you fight. Yes,
Right.
100%.
Right.
So
And
there-
and we'll use our reach, and we're in lockstep on this concept with FTCA. Also
100%.
push this with STEM as well. I'm sorry, Dan, I
Uh,
interrupted.
just going to say, I think this is not a FRIA question exactly, but someone over on YouTube was asking that they noticed in the Before You Fly app, they expanded the restriction radius. Anyone aware of that and why?
Restriction
No.
radius for, I'm assuming, Super Bowl?
I'm not sure
Or
what you mean by
control-
restriction radius.
Controlled airspace in general, because they did that a couple of years ago, where it used to show slightly smaller, but then they increased it just a little bit for that perimeter, or for most of the borders of airports, or for the controlled airspace. But that was a few years ago. I don't know of anything recent.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe it's just one of the layers that they have turned on or off.
Well, here I'll
one of the
pull
extra
up.
layers.
So I've got Before You Fly pulled up here. Let's see.
So while we're waiting, certainly one of the things that so the authors, to my knowledge, of Before You Fly are Loft. Those are Loft developers, which is yet another reason why we advocate using a Loft, because these are people that allow a Loft use for recreational use for free, and the company spends energy and effort to help recreational UAS. So that's why we're very pro Aloft. And
Okay.
one of the capabilities in there is notify and fly, which we think we can use.
They did reply in the YouTube chat that I noticed 6 months ago a park I visit is now under restriction and wasn't 6 months ago.
Okay.
So they must have
that's
added
Could
something.
be a local thing.
So
Sounds
a
like
couple
Sounds like a
different
take off and
things
fly ordinance.
a couple things could have happened. Number one, they usually update. People can not people. People or organizations that operate any kind of air park, airport, helipad, anything like that can submit their information to the FAA on in terms of, let me zoom in here. This is an easier way to do it. Actually, sorry. On
Going to the
restrictions
facility
around.
map.
Yep, 100%.
And this is also
So-
where the FRIAs will eventually show up, according to the FAA.
So I'm gonna zoom into local here because it's easier for me to talk about this. So every so often, so right here in the center of this bow tie here is Sky Harbor International. This is our main airport, our international airport, essentially, for the Phoenix area. And you can see these squares. They go from 0 right at the ends of the runway and right alongside, all the way up to 100, 200, 300, and eventually 400, depending on which side, and based on approaches and exits from the airport. So I think it's, what was it, day 41, 42 days, they update the UAS facility.
56.
56 days, thank you. So approximately every 2 months, with new information. So so you can see here the congestion that is the Phoenix market in terms of airspace, and you can effectively fly in any of the spaces that aren't covered by one of these grids. Now, sometimes an airport will ask for an extension to kind of grow this radius, depending on what the FAA calls need, that arbitrary ask that they request. So, and it may be that they need more space for a specific type of airplane that's going to be landing there or whatnot. So, that may be why your restriction area increased. So just think about it from that perspective. So, yeah. Now, on top of all that, we can go back into, sorry, aloft. Oh, no, I have it here. So you can kind of see that now during the Super Bowl, the hot mess of what Phoenix will be.
Just don't. Yeah, just don't.
Just don't fly. If you're in Apache Junction or Santan Valley, you're good. But otherwise, this is going to be an interesting weekend.
Yeah, that's like anytime the president is out of.
That looks like DC.
Yeah, out of their normal area, they go visit somewhere.
like
There's a huge TFR.
Like the FRZ.
Or that's just permanent by me.
And also, we know that the Super Bowl is a test location, and so there will be, as there have been in past Super Bowls, a multitude of counter UAS technologies at work, and there will be a multitude of federal officers around. So it's just like
100%.
So Josh, you should have talked to somebody ahead of time and conducted a test and flew in near your house and said, "Okay, can you see if this drone's flying? Can you detect it?"
Can you see me now?
I'm in the TFR. Can you find me? Play a little game with the law enforcement, as long as you planned it out ahead of time.
I spy a little drone.
That's right. So our newest FPVFC member, Rob, is works with a number of the large sports stadia in the wonderful state of Texas, and so he's got a lot of insight into COAs and TFRs with sports activities. So, and as he's able to join us, he's still on shifts, so that's why he's not here right now. But he's now managing that's his full-time job with the force that he works on, is managing a fleet of drone pilots. So great addition to the team.
Yep, 100%. All right. So have we bored you enough? Have we answered
We've had great questions and an obvious demonstration of a great sense of humor.
Oh, I'm sure 100%. We can bore them some more. I've got at least one way to do that.
Yeah, what do you got?
It was last
Besides
week.
making them read regulations.
It was last week. I can throw tons of acronyms at them. We had another meeting, this time with NASA, about the US ASRS. So for those who don't know, NASA has this accident reporting system, basically. And they are encouraging everybody who flies a drone that if you have any kind of incident, that you should be filling out this gigantic, extremely dull and very boring form. So they had a meeting with us where we tried to explain a little bit about who we are, what FPV is, what FPV pilots do, why there's no way any of us are ever going to fill out that form, and maybe how they could make it better so that it is actually slightly useful for us. Is that somewhat accurate, Dave?
Yes, and you would think that they did not really need to ask these questions of us, in as much as I led a ad hoc committee with the director of from NASA of the UAS ASRS team. So, but we did. We went through that, and we will try to find a little pony prancing around in this environment.
I believe we taught them a thing or two about what FPV is during the meeting.
I hope so. And anyone who has read our safety guidelines will note that we pointed out that we think a great way to report incidents, because it was one of the requirements of the safety guidelines that we described safety incident reporting, is to utilize the NASA UAS ASRS. However, we want to utilize it as a series of best practices, focusing on the three areas where we feel there is an important improvement to be made with recreational, propeller safety, battery safety, and airspace authorization. And so that's the tack. And we stipulated that we feel it's really imperative to get something that's usable. As Dan said, it takes about a half hour to fill out one of these forms. So I broke a propeller. You can spend a half hour filling in the form. No. So
That's like
in the committee that I
5
ran,
packs.
we agreed that to identify only those data elements that are essential, and that took 89% of the checkboxes and fill-ins of the form out for recreational. So we want to put that on a mobile app, feed it into something, bolt it onto something like a loft, so most of the information is there. And then so reporting something that's useful, that could be a best practice, becomes as painless as possible.
Yeah, I had to point out to them one of their slides, I forget, they had to say 10 bullet points why you would fill out this form. And as they were going down the list, it's like almost every one of those, like I meet that requirement on every flight. Like whether it was you had an incident like you hit the ground or bent a propeller, or you were breaking a rule, I mean like flying FPV without a spotter with you, or flying in high winds or extreme weather conditions, or like I forget what all of those points were, but I was just like down the list, like yep, that's why I fly, that's why I go out and fly, that's what I do every time. I'd be just like filling out these forms nonstop.
Right, and they were also pushing that if you fill out one of these forms and you have an infraction, you get immunity from the enforcement, and that is blatantly not the case. And so, as in any other this is sleeves out of the FAA's vest. As in any other situation, the FAA has at their discretion the ability to not fine us for an infraction, and so in crewed aircraft, this is a big deal. And so airline pilots have done this, and with the issue they were trying to resolve was lots of fatalities, and so it's helped. And so, in as much as we're not trying to solve a lots of fatalities issue, what we're going after is best practices, props, batteries, airspace authorization. So that's and another tidbit of information is we've been talking about the FCC Notice for Public Rulemaking, and this is an important one. This is the allocation of protected spectrum for UAS, and it was finally released yesterday. And so there are two dates in it, and they're not calling it an NPRM, so we'll see what sort of shenanigans they're pulling. I need to read this new document, and also we have at least one company that has agreed to talk to us, who has some extremely bright people who are working on this NPRM. So we hope to take advantage of industry smarts on the private sector side.
So if they're not calling it an NPRM, are they actually accepting comments on it?
They are. There are two dates in it that they are accepting comments. One of those dates is in March. I think 7 March.
Okay.
So not a lot of time. That's the first date. Then the other one is, I want to say 60 days from yesterday. But I need to circle back on that. Been a little busy. Wrapping up ACK tasking groups 14 and 15.
Got to read at least multiple pages a day to meet that deadline.
That's right. I mean, FAA's 4 months. They've got themselves.
Well, I mean,
SLA.
it's all par for the course for them. 4 months, 90 days for
That's right.
for a waiver process, 10 years for 107. I mean, it's
yeah. I wouldn't
makes
want
my
that
brain
job.
hurt.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all I had. Thank you for those couple of additional topics.
All right. Round the room real quick. Anybody else have anything to wrap us up on? Nope. Dan, good. Blunty, good. All right. Well, we'll see you again in another 2 weeks. Once we have some place for you guys to go on kind of form letters for UAS reauthorization, FCC, we will point you in the right direction through Discord, Facebook, and kind of push that stuff out. And then also look out for the video for FPVFC and FTCA, where we're talking a little bit more about
FRIA
this meeting,
and
right?
the FAA.
Yep, 100%. So Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you for the comedy gold. Love it. And thank you for the great questions. Keep it up, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks. All right. Have a good night.
Excellent. Thank you.